How's it going, guys? It's K Cars, and in today's video I wanted to give you guys a 6-year review on my 2016 Dodge Challenger ScatPack. So I recently did a video like this about my Jeep Cherokee XJ, except that was a 2-year review. So of course I wanted to make a video just like that, except with the Challenger. So today we're going to be going over my 6-year review of my 2016 Dodge Challenger ScatPack. We're going to be talking about any kind of issues that I've had with the car, as well as all the modifications that we've done, as well as my opinions and possible future plans with this car. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So as I've said, this is a 2016 Dodge Challenger ScatPack. We actually picked this thing up on April 1st, 2016. So, it's been 6 years and a few months. And in those 6 years, I've had a whole bunch of fun with this car and, basically zero issues at all. So a majority of this video will also be a driving portion where I'll just, talk about the car while driving it, so you guys can get kind of like a better experience of it. But I did want to go over a few things before that. So this car currently has about 30,000 miles on it. So, 30,000 miles in 6 years. And those 30,000 miles have been many different types of driving. Whether that's, taking this car on a road trip, driving it to the Pocono Raceway and racing, and then driving it all the way back with zero issues. I've also driven this car to many different car shows and car meets. I've also taken this car on different vacations as well. So I definitely have been driving this thing. 30,000 miles in 6 years probably doesn't seem like much to some people, but I definitely have driven this car on long trips as well. So probably the farthest that I've ever driven this car was to Ocean City for Ocean City Cruise Week, and we actually went to that event twice, so it was a whole bunch of fun. Of course, it rained basically all the time, which is pretty unfortunate. I feel like it always rains in Ocean City whenever there's an event like that. Like I said, we went to Ocean City about twice with this car, about a 5-hour drive, and literally didn't have any types of issues on the way there, while we were there, or on the way back. So of course, super reliable vehicle on road trips just like that. And then I also drove this car to a bunch of different cars and coffee meets. Pretty much once every 2 weeks, I drove it up to Pittsburgh, which is about an hour-and-a-half drive from where I was driving it from. So hour-and-a-half drive up to Pittsburgh, and then an hour-and-a-half drive back. And that was, like I said, once every 2 weeks. So it was a whole bunch of fun driving it to all those car meets, cruising around Pittsburgh with a bunch of different car people. Whole bunch of fun doing that. And I will actually include a clip right here of one of our cruises that we did at one of the car shows in Pittsburgh. So as you guys can see, that was a whole bunch of fun. That was actually with Dr. M3, Ignition Tube, Driven to Cure, and many different people. So it was a whole bunch of fun doing that, and of course the Challenger was super reliable for that whole trip. Now, another thing that we've done with this car is we drove it up to the Pocono Raceway and went roll racing with it. Pocono Raceway was about a 4-hour drive, so I drove it 4 hours to the track, raced all day, and then drove it 4 hours back, and of course zero issues once again. I will be including some of those roll racing videos at the end of this video, so if you want to see those, make sure to stick around until the end. 30,000 miles, literally haven't had any types of issues except for one small issue that we had way back in the beginning of whenever I first started driving this car, which I will go over during the driving portion of this video. Now on to the modifications that we have on this car. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I did want you guys to get a little bit of a background before we actually get into this car and take it on the driving review. So starting off, we do have a few cosmetic modifications, which are all from ZL1 add-ons. Of course, they're mostly primarily for ZL1 Camaros, but they also do make Challenger accessories and body parts, as well as for different vehicles as well. So starting off, we do have the diffuser in the back, and I will get out and show you guys as well. And then we also do have the side skirts and the rock guards, all from ZL1 add-ons. So first, I'm going to show you guys the diffuser back here, and I think it looks very good right here. You guys can see that, and it was actually a pretty simple install as well. right there. And then for the side skirts, if you guys have been, keeping up with the videos here, so the driver's side skirt actually got ripped off. Whenever I hit a bump, it was kind of dangling off in the front. One of the screws got loose, and then, I hit a bump and it just got ripped off. So I am planning to replace that. I already do have a replacement. I just have to actually, get to it. And I am planning on releasing an install tutorial video once that time actually comes. So let me go ahead and show you guys the passenger side of the side skirt. Show you guys what that looks like over here. I am actually a really big fan of how these side skirts look. I think they do add a very cool, level of appearance to the vehicle. Then of course we also do have the rock guards right here in the front. I think those look very good, and they also do a pretty good job at protecting the paint from any kind of rock chips that we could have. Then we also do have the rock guards in the back here as well. You can see what those look like right over here. And of course, they also do protect the paint in the back here from any rocks that could be, kicked up from the tires here. So overall, I am a pretty big fan of how these cosmetic mods actually turned out. My favorite one is probably the diffuser, just because of, obviously it looks very well, and it actually kind of makes the appearance of the car actually look lower, which I also like. Then moving on from the cosmetic modifications, one of the first exhaust modifications that we did to this car was a mid-muffler delete. And I would say probably the mid-muffler delete is one of the most common modifications that you can do for a Challenger or a Charger. And, after I got that mid-muffler delete, it really opened up the sound of this car, and I was a huge fan of how it sounded. Now, pretty much with that, the Challengers come stock with 2 catalytic converters, 2 mufflers, and then 2 resonators in the back. So pretty much with the mid-muffler delete, they just cut out those mufflers, which are, stock. They are right underneath the rear seats, so that part of the exhaust right there. So they cut those out and just welded in a straight pipe in place of those mufflers, and that was about $100. Now after that, like I said, it sounded a lot better in my opinion. Now some people don't like doing a mid-muffler delete because it does make the exhaust a little bit more raspy, and some people just don't like that. So if you don't like the raspiness of the exhaust, then I would recommend probably just going with a ScatPack exhaust. Like I said, I was a big fan of how it sounded after getting that mid-muffler delete as well. So after we got that, another exhaust modification that we did, and also a performance mod, was getting the long tube headers as well as the catless mid pipes. So those are actually from Cook's, and they are the 1 7/8 inch long tube headers, and we also got catless mid pipes to go along with those. And then after that, of course, we also did get the custom dyno tune, and all of that was installed and tuned at OST Dyno near Pittsburgh. So with the long tube headers, catless mid pipes, plus the tune, it picked up around 48 horsepower from all that. So stock, it actually dynoed 422. So right now it's making 470 horsepower to the wheels. Now we're going to go ahead and get on to the driving portion of today's video and actually give you guys a full review, talk about one minor issue that we have had with the car, and also just give you guys an actual review of how I like the car after 6 years. So let's go ahead and get on the road. Yeah, I gotta admit, that sound literally never gets old. So let's go ahead and get started with the driving portion of this video. So like I was saying, I literally haven't had any types of issues with this car. And in this portion of the video, I did want to talk about some very minor issues that I have experienced with this car. Going back to one of the very first drives that I ever took this car on back in 2016. So we were driving this thing through the country roads of West Virginia, where, it goes up in elevation, down in elevation, a bunch of fun twisty roads over there. And whenever I got back from that drive, I got a warning light and it said service stability control. Now I wasn't really sure what was happening because at the time I really wasn't having any issues with the car. It was driving just like normal, and I really didn't notice anything that was wrong with the car. So I didn't really pay too much attention to that warning light. Didn't really take it too seriously because nothing was going on with the car, nothing was wrong. So I decided to just ignore that warning light, and literally after a few minutes, or maybe even the next day or something like that, it went away all by itself. So really not too sure what actually happened and what caused that warning light. It is completely possible that it could have just been a malfunction in one of the sensors, because the car was so new at the time. And then something else that could have caused that is maybe the elevation changes that we were going through, because like I said, in the country roads of West Virginia, you're constantly going up and down in elevation, and that's what makes driving over there so much fun. So, you know, elevation change could have also been a cause of that issue. So other than that warning light, I really haven't had anything else happen with this car in terms of reliability or any types of issues that I've had. I will say, on the highway, this car is very good. It stays very planted on the highway. It's very good for high-speed driving. I actually prefer driving this thing on the highway instead of in the city, because in the city you have to worry about stuff like blind spots, and of course on the highway you have to worry about that stuff too. But on the highway it's easier to clear your blind spots because there's most likely not going to be as much traffic on the highway than in the city like there is here, like you guys see. Now obviously it depends where you're driving. Of course there is always traffic in certain areas on the interstate, but like I said, I just think it's easier to drive this car on the interstate or at higher speeds, because you can clear your blind spots more easily, because you can speed up and then make sure that there's nothing in your blind spot. Now I will kind of give you guys a quick view here. If I can turn around, you guys can see right there, there is a pretty big blind spot back there. So I will say that is one of my complaints with this car. But, you know, as I keep saying, as I've said in my previous videos, and as people have commented in some of my previous videos, you just clear your blind spots with the horsepower. And what I mean by that is what I just explained, where you can just hit the gas and, you know, make sure there's nothing in your blind spots, and that way you know there's nothing actually there. Even if you look back, you don't see anything. I have had that happen before, where, you know, I looked back and I didn't see a car there, but then I sped up to clear my blind spot just to make sure, and there actually ended up being a car right in my blind spot. So that is just one thing to look out for, is that the blind spots with this car, you know, they definitely are there, and it's really something that you have to be cautious about if you are planning to get a Challenger like this. And I know one thing that some people might be pretty curious about with this car is the fuel economy. Now, in my opinion, you shouldn't really be getting a Challenger or Charger for fuel economy. Even if you're not getting it for the fuel economy, I really don't think it's something that should be, you know, too important when deciding if you want to get a Challenger or Charger. Because with cars like this, you're paying for the performance, not really the fuel economy. So I will say the best that I've seen with this car on the highway is around 22. So, which I consider that very good for a car like this, you know, 6.4 liter V8. It's pretty difficult to get good fuel economy with a huge 392 Hemi like this. And now I will say, from the factory, this thing does come with MDS, which is multi-displacement system. And you guys probably are all familiar with that. It's basically where if you're not going too hard on the gas, then it only runs on half the cylinders. And it's actually a pretty noticeable difference when that happens, because it definitely does sound very different than, you know, what it sounds like right now. Now this car currently does not have MDS because I got it dyno tuned, and that tune actually removed the MDS system from this car. And, you know, to be honest, I really didn't see too much of a difference with fuel economy whenever that happened, you know, after the tune, after getting that MDS system removed. And I think the main reason for that is because I just didn't really pay attention to the fuel economy too much. So even though I didn't notice the difference, I'm sure it probably did make a slight difference. It probably did make the fuel economy just a little bit worse, but at the same time, I'd rather have, you know, modifications and a dyno tune rather than keeping that MDS system and getting slightly better fuel economy. So I will say, for the past few months, I've only been driving in the city, and right now I'm averaging 14 miles per gallon right now. Some people might say that's pretty terrible, miles per gallon, and some people might say that it's actually pretty good for this size of a V8. To be honest, like I said, I really don't have an opinion on the fuel economy with this car, because I just enjoy driving it no matter what type of fuel economy it gets. Now, of course, it is getting a little bit more difficult to enjoy cars like these with gas prices skyrocketing right now. It is unfortunate that we are in times like these where, you know, electric vehicles are pretty much going to be taking over. Now, I think it's kind of funny just seeing pictures online of, you know, different types of electric vehicles being stranded on the road and a gas-powered vehicle having to come to, you know, save them, or a gas-powered tow truck having to come, you know, tow an electric vehicle out of being stranded. So I don't know, I honestly think most of the population does want to keep gas-powered vehicles and just have EVs as an option for people who do want them. So I do think that it's pretty unfortunate that, you know, we are basically being forced to kind of switch over. Next thing I wanted to talk about is how the car actually handles, and I wanted to talk about how it takes bumps first, and then I'll also talk about how it handles turns. So when it comes to bumps, obviously a Charger or a Challenger just like this will have pretty stiff suspension. And what I've noticed is that whenever you go over a bump, it's, you can definitely feel the stiffness of the suspension. And, it's really not too bad, but I would say you just have to be cautious of where you're driving. One other thing that I worry about is also scraping. So with the suspension being lower than a normal practical car, you do have to be a lot more cautious of what kind of speed bumps you drive over, and, being cautious of the potholes that you hit. I will say, going over speed bumps, I usually make people pretty mad if they're driving behind me, because I slow down to literally like 0 if I'm going over a speed bump that I think I'm going to scrape on. And for me, since I have long tube headers, this car scrapes more easily than a stock Challenger would, since those headers stick down a little bit farther down towards the ground. They scrape a little bit more easily than the stock headers would. So like I said, every time I go over a speed bump, I always have to be more cautious of how I actually drive over them. And like I said, it is pretty easy to make people mad, because I do drive extremely slow over speed bumps, just because I don't want to scrape, and also sometimes I can scrape the splitter as well in the front. So just one thing to be cautious about. Now when it comes to taking turns in this car, I will say it actually has exceeded my expectations, because before I actually started driving this car around turns and actually having fun with driving it, a lot of people were saying how, because it's a boat or it weighs so much, that it's not really going to be able to handle very well. I get these downshifts in here really quick. Like I said, never gets old whenever you do that. But like I was saying, this car has actually exceeded my expectations when it comes to how it handles turns. Now, I have driven this car on the Pittsburgh International Raceway, which is actually a road course, and I believe it's like 4 miles long, which is extremely fun. Now, I will admit, that was the first time that I actually drove this car on a track. So, I wasn't the best. I was only in the, the novice group and just getting training on how to actually drive on a track. So I didn't actually take this car to its full potential, because I was still, basically just learning how to, properly drive on a track. But it was a whole bunch of fun to do that. And it really made me learn how well this car actually handles going around turns. Now, of course, it's not going to be anything crazy like maybe a BRZ or a Miata, or definitely not like a Porsche, but this car isn't made to go around turns like that. It's made to go fast in a straight line, and it's made for mostly drag racing and straight line speed, which is what it's pretty good at. This car actually is very fun to throw around in corners and stuff like that. So all around, I would say it's a very fun vehicle to drive. So I hope you guys enjoyed that driving portion of today's video. And I also did want to end this video by talking about some of my future plans and, my opinions on, V8 vehicles in general. So with the future plans of this car here, I have had several different ideas of taking this car to, the next level of the next horsepower range. So I was thinking of doing some things to maybe add 100 to 200 horsepower. And some of the ideas that I've had were a Pro Charger. And one of my friends, Saif, he has a SRT 392 Challenger with a Pro Charger. And that thing is extremely fast. I'll post a video of us racing right here. As you guys can see, that thing was, basically walking right away from me. So definitely made a huge difference in power with that vehicle. I can't remember exactly what horsepower that made, but I would assume it probably added around 200 horsepower with a Pro Charger. So that's definitely one idea that I've had for this car. But then again, adding a Pro Charger, I would probably estimate it to be, around $10,000 for parts and labor. So that's definitely pretty expensive, definitely pretty up there. Then another idea that I've had is a cam. Now, cams aren't really too popular mods for Chargers or Challengers. They're more popular for LS or LT based vehicles like Camaros and Corvettes, and I think they sound, amazing. I also do think they sound amazing for Challengers as well. Now, with a cam, the horsepower gains wouldn't be too significant. I believe a cam plus tune would only add around, maybe 50 horsepower, but it would sound a whole lot better, I think, especially at idle. Now, for a cam, I believe parts plus labor would be around 7,000. What really gets you with that is the labor, because parts for a cam really isn't like too crazy. It's really the labor that you're paying for. And I definitely wouldn't trust myself to do something like that at all. I would take it back to OST Dyno for, them to do all the installs plus the tune. So that would definitely be pretty expensive as well. Now, another idea that I've had is a twin turbo kit. I believe Hellion actually makes a twin turbo kit for Hemis like this. And I think it would be awesome to have a twin turbo kit. I haven't really seen too many Challengers with turbos on them. I think Pro Chargers are a lot more common for Challengers and Chargers like this. But I do think a twin turbo kit would be insane. It would sound very good and, obviously add some horsepower as well. But one thing that I've heard with the 392s is that they don't really handle boost that well, but I've also seen many different boosted Challengers such as Saif's with his ProCharge SRT 392. Many different boosted Challengers have been running very well, very reliably with, a ProCharger or turbochargers. I do think a twin turbo system would be very cool for this car. It would sound insane and also add a good amount of horsepower as well. But once again, I do think that it would be very expensive, and I don't know if I would be able to justify, dropping $10,000 for an increase of maybe 100 to 200 horsepower for this car with decreased reliability. Now, one thing that I love about this car is how reliable it has been. And to be honest, I just love this car how it is right now. Obviously I do have the desire to always add more horsepower. It's always a lot of fun whenever you do a new modification and then see what kind of difference it makes. It was a lot of fun after getting the headers installed for me, but I just don't think that I would want to sacrifice the reliability of this car for maybe 100 to 200 more horsepower. Although I do think that it would be very awesome to have, a ProCharger or a cam or a twin turbo system. I don't really see myself wanting to drop, around $10,000 for something like that, because like I said, I just love this car how it is right now. It's a whole bunch of fun to drive right now. And I do think that money could be saved and be spent better for, maybe continuing to restore my Jeep Cherokee XJ, or even saving that money for something bigger, such as adding a new vehicle to the collection, or even possibly buying a garage or a shop to actually, have a place to work on these vehicles on my own, which I think would also be very cool. So, definitely have options and definitely have stuff to think about. But, for the future plans for the Challenger, I think I'm planning to just keep it how it is right now. And like I said, I do definitely still have to install the side skirt on the driver's side right here. So that's definitely one future plan that I do have for this car for sure. But as for any kind of big modifications for this car, I don't think I see myself dropping a huge amount of money for modifications on this car, because I just love how reliable it is right now. It's a whole bunch of fun to drive. It's very reliable, and I just love it how it is right now. Obviously it's not the fastest car out there, and even with a ProCharger, it still wouldn't be the fastest car out there. So like I said before, I just think it's better for me to be able to save that money and put it towards something else. Then as for the future of V8s in general, if you guys saw my video a few months ago talking about why Dodge is discontinuing the Hemi V8 after 2023, then, I definitely do think that they are making a mistake, and that these cars like this, the Challengers and Chargers, will definitely be going up in price and value after they stop producing them. To be honest, I have been thinking about selling this car or trading it in, but after learning about that news of Dodge discontinuing the Hemi V8 after 2023, I think that selling this car right now would definitely not be a good idea, just because I do think that these things will skyrocket in price and value. So in my opinion, I definitely do think that it's a great idea to hold on to your V8s right now, because the future is really uncertain right now, especially with all these electric vehicles being pushed so hard. It's really hard to say what's going to happen in the future. With all these different regulations coming out, it's definitely becoming more and more difficult to actually obtain a V8, which is pretty unfortunate. And, seems like electric vehicles definitely are the future. And, I will admit, electric vehicles do have better performance than gas-powered vehicles, but most car enthusiasts will tell you there's just no soul, no fun in driving electric vehicles. Even if it's something like the Tesla Plaid, which is, 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds. That thing has crazy performance, and, it's basically pretty much the fastest car in the world right now. So definitely insane, but I just don't think electric cars like that have the kind of soul or, even the kind of like fun factor of even like the driving experience. The future of these V8s is definitely uncertain, and I'm definitely interested to see how this whole thing plays out, after 2023. It'll be very interesting to see how much these vehicles actually skyrocket in price and value. So guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Like I said, 6-year review of the Challenger after 30,000 miles. literally haven't had any types of issues. It's been a whole bunch of fun driving this car to many different places, many different races that I've done over the past 6 years, and I love it just the way it is right now. So I'm going to continue having fun with this car, and hopefully you guys continue to enjoy these videos. And like I said, I will be including some racing videos at the end of this video, so if you guys want to check those out, make sure to stay until the end. And if you guys have anything to add to this video, make sure to leave those down in the comment section below. And if you guys have any questions or comments, make sure to also comment those down below. And if you guys have any video suggestions for videos you would like to see in the future, make sure to also drop those down in the comment section below. And if you guys liked this video or found it entertaining, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.